How do you stay conscious all the time? You don't. You don't. You don't stay conscious all the time. Life necessitates that you change your state. You ever seen that you just don't have the same state? It's always changing. Literally 5 minutes and it could change. Even after you watch this video, you might have, hopefully, a higher state of consciousness. Maybe you remember certain things. Maybe you tune back into your intuition. Maybe just the pure vibration of this video bumps things for you a little bit. But you're not going to stay there always. You're not going to perfectly remain in a great state of consciousness. Why not? My understanding of reality is that's not how it works. You don't just stay conscious all the time. Dude, my spiritual ego would have loved if reality was set up in such a way where you could just stay conscious all the time. And maybe it's possible. I mean, yeah, I'm super open-minded, so I'm going to say it is possible, maybe. But for today, no, don't worry about it. You don't try and stay conscious all the time. Because you know what happens when you try and stay conscious all the time? You get really unconscious because you're trying to force it. You're trying to force reality to be, or to serve you in this high consciousness way. But look what's happening, ready? You're trying to serve yourself. But you see what's happening? Ego is coming into the picture. It's an ego-driven spiritual desire. It's subtle, that, isn't it? This is why I like to make the spiritual ego explicit and conscious, so that you're aware of what's happening. Because, as I've said in the past, if you like this work, if you're into sort of transpersonal psychology, if you're into spiritual work, if you're into metaphysical consciousness work, your ego will probably cling to it in some way, right? And what will happen most likely is, because you're still working with ego, your ego is going to try and maintain itself. And what's really good for your spiritual ego? Higher states of consciousness. For you to tell yourself, oh, look at me, I'm conscious. But here's the thing, the spiritual ego develops this shadow of, I better not be unconscious. Those unconscious people over there, not for me. You see what's happening? If you're trying to be conscious all the time, kind of like how I used to be, it's not going to work out. Because if you really think about it, what is life? Life is designed for you to experience all kinds of stuff, all kinds of states of consciousness. If you just go for those higher ones, not only are you going to develop a shadow, but also you're just not going to be very mature and you're going to be stuck in spiritual naivety. In fact, what you'll probably see is that you appreciate consciousness the most once you've lost it. So let's say you've been low consciousness for a while, and then you hit an awesome state during meditation. You hit a great state during some yoga. You contemplate late at night. Boom, you have a small awakening. You value something when it's rare and when it's difficult to attain. And higher states of consciousness, as just a normal human being, are very rare and they're pretty difficult to attain. Now, if I were to change that and say, what about a really kind of conscious, deliberate, serious self-actualizer, or someone who's really into the spiritual work, is it rare and is it challenging? Yes and no. No, in the sense that if you're a really diligent conscious person, you live a life that is conscious. So naturally, you experience more consciousness. That's just how your life is set up. But yes, it is more challenging and it is more rare in the sense that you're still a human. You're still stuck with your finite human condition. You can't change that. These are the cards that you're dealt with. And so really, I guess the kind of wiser thing for me to say here right now is, yeah, it is rare and it is challenging to feel higher consciousness states. From that perspective, don't go and chase them. Don't try and have them always. And listen, I've got to tell you, I've really tried this out. Like, I used to almost delude myself, man. I almost used to be super mechanical with it. Like, I used to meditate literally like 5 minutes before I did anything. And then it got to like 10 minutes, and then 20 minutes was like a brilliant amount of time to sit for. And to be honest, I was more conscious with everything I did for the most part. Sometimes it actually made me less conscious because, I don't know, I think it almost felt like the karma of trying to be conscious all the time. But again, this is a really, really great point for me to share with you. Sometimes meditation doesn't actually make you more conscious. Sometimes meditation makes you more introverted, but in an unpleasant way. Sometimes you'll be more stuck in your head. Sometimes you'll be more aware of your thoughts, but you're not aware enough. It's like you're stuck at this annoying level of self-awareness where it's just that standard self-consciousness. Like, oh no, I'm self-conscious. You might have that a lot after you meditate. It depends. It really depends. What I would say is you're never guaranteed higher consciousness. But the more diligently you practice and the more often you practice, you're going to really increase the likelihood of you being conscious as a result of meditating. But then again, and I'll tell you this as well, sometimes when I do the most amount of meditation, I actually end up being like weirdly less conscious. And it's because I feel so much and I'm almost more emotional. And it kind of makes me, it's like I'm less grounded sometimes in a way that isn't really that nice. So there's a lot of nuance with meditation. And also there's nuance in altered states of consciousness in general, right? They can bring up some really weird things. And I will try and talk about that in the future if I can. Because it's not always that you have a really pleasant time and that you're just floating on a cloud. No. Sometimes, man, it's freaky. Sometimes it's super existential. Sometimes it's really intense. Other times it's enlightening. So you get a lot of different stuff. And this is kind of what will happen for you if you do really want those higher states of consciousness, kind of like I did, because then you end up changing your state more. When you change your state more, you get a variety of experiences. You see what's out there. You see, whoa, this is what's available to me, consciousness-wise. So yeah, you experience a lot of stuff. Final thing is, if you want to make this work really real for you, if you want to take things to the next level, I do offer coaching and mentoring. If you're interested in working with me one-to-one, you can see the link in the description. You can book a free call with me. If that interests you, check out the link in the description, my friend. Otherwise, we are going to call it there. I hope you've enjoyed this one. I know we're talking about a lot of spiritual things these days. That's what's fun for me, and that's where we're headed, okay? We can talk about no fap a ton, or you can just move on from that and you can get in touch with this stuff, which is way more fun, and it means you're out of the fog. It's most fulfilling for me to make content for you that is for your higher self or for your higher consciousness, self-actualizing self, as opposed to your addict self or your lower self. We'll definitely talk about that and cover that because that's an unavoidable part of being a human. But we've got to understand what we have here. And I got to appreciate my natural strengths and gifts. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, my friend, lots of love. Take care. And as always, my friend, peace.